this is a big statement to make, but generally I think it's very, like, I feel a lot of shame being German right now, because I think, if anything, what the current government is doing and sort of the public discourse and how we're treating all of this really shows that as a country, we have learned nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And we are just repeating old mistakes, and Germany in no way, shape, or form is maturing or allowing room for discussion or different opinions. It's basically saying, it's being very, oh my God, I'm going to stumble over this word, totalitarian in the way that it deals with anything. And honestly, like, I don't know, like, when you look at the rest of the world and how they're dealing with this discourse and how the rest of the world is open for more nuanced discussions and more nuanced point of views, it is really embarrassing what Germany is doing and the way our politicians are behaving. And I think, we're just talking about this before, there's like an added extra level to it where Germany has really declared itself the expert on anti-Semitism in a way that is ridiculous. Like, even the Beauftragte für Antisemitismus in Germany is not a Jewish man. So you have the person who's supposed to decide in Germany what is anti-Semitic and what is not, telling Jewish people they're being anti-Semitic. And you're like, how have we ended up in this situation? Like, everyone needs to take a breath, take a step back and look at themselves and think, okay, what is useful and how do we progress from here? Because we cannot continue the way we are.
Also, I mean, there were like very moments where I thought this is a bit, looks like a bit like a dystopia or something. Like, I guess you read what happened on the Berlinale.
Yeah.
About the
clapartheid, I think someone called it, where like Claudia Roth was like, no, I was only clapping for that person, not for that person. You're like, are you serious?
Yeah.
They're a team.
Like, they're saying the same thing. It's the same movie. What do you mean?
Yeah, for context for the listeners, there was like was a documentary?
It was a documentary.
It was a documentary about produced or directed by a Israeli and a Palestinian.
Yep.
They both did a documentary talking about the whole apartheid and in the area of Palestinian Israel. So they won, and they gave a very political speech. Who was the one who clapped, or which politician?
Claudia Roth. She is a member of the Green Party, and she is our Minister for Culture.
Okay. And then she clapped, but then to correct that, she made a statement that she only clapped to the speech of the Israeli.
Exactly. Even though they said the same thing. And
Yeah.
it's like, like, there are no words to describe sort of the situation in Germany. And it's so sad. I mean, it's sad because, it has real life consequences and people are dying as a result of this. But we have such smart, educated people in this country who could lead really good, nuanced discussions. And this is not a black and white issue. So we should be having these conversations. And it's really sad that they're just shutting down any opportunity. And it's sad for everyone.
And what do you think is happening there? I mean, do you think that they know that they are doing wrong? For example, in her case, she actually knows that she wanted to clap both of them, that both of them are right, but the cabinet or the parliament or whatever tells her, no, you need to tell this because otherwise you will be called a anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
or
I
what
think,
is the thing? Because I don't know if they know what you're doing or if they actually don't know it. They are completely blind.
I think they are blind.
I have to say, having spoken to some German people, they are very convinced of a certain story. And the thing is, with the human brain, we don't like changing our stories. Like, you like to have a definite, okay, so Israel is good and everyone else is bad and we should never criticize Israel, and that's the story. And to admit that something is wrong in that narrative also will make you question everything about yourself and your beliefs and your identity. So I think it's easier for people to stick to the story that they think is true, or the things that they've decided. And I think a lot of research has shown that you can't convince anyone with facts actually to change their mind. They just believe whatever they believe. And that's the same with a lot of Germans. And I believe these people, because the problem is, if that person who's in government really admitted to herself, first of all, that she, was wrong, she would have to admit to herself that she's a bad person because she is upholding and furthering a genocide, basically. And does she want to believe that about herself? I think it's easier to believe a lie. It's like people in cults or whatever, it's just easier to stick to. Otherwise, it says a lot about yourself, and then you have to examine
I have a feeling what people are finding a very hard time to find themselves being the bad person. I mean, I have, for example, but I don't know if it's in everyone. But for me, I grew up as a very religious Christian, so I never behave as such. So I know for a fact, based on those standards, that I'm not a good person based on those standards. For me, it's never a problem to admit that maybe I might do something that it doesn't come out as a good person. So I'm in peace with that. But I find it very hard for other people to find peace on being bad. And I feel like a lot of people just want to lie themselves and create a narrative to be the good ones all the time.
Because we don't really have a culture of nuance in that way. We're really taught from an early age on there's good and there's bad. You see this reinforced in every Marvel movie ever made, like in Hollywood, just like in every aspect of our culture. It's really reinforced. You're either a good person or you're a bad person. And so I think it's really hard if you think you're a good person to admit, oh, I've done something wrong, I've done something bad, because we don't allow for those gray areas, like we really strip each other of our humanity of saying, well, we all do shit things sometimes, or we all make mistakes, or we all think the wrong thing. And there's nothing wrong with saying, oh, I was uninformed, or I made a wrong decision, because it's such a dichotomy, it's one or the other. You can't be both.
I think also some people just don't care. Like, they just don't care. They're looking after their own interests, like their own security. They care about their own little world. It's lack of empathy, I have to say. And they don't care about those people. And
because, for example, it happens a lot when someone is being called a racist. You're a racist, and they will completely say, "No, I'm not. And that's like the worst insult that you can tell, mostly a white person, that they are racist. And it plays a different role maybe on them. That if someone tells me, "Hey, you're a racist," why? What did I say? That. Oh, okay. I didn't notice. Or I have said some racist stuff. Okay, or behavior. So I didn't know that. But I will never say like no, never, or stuff like that. And also happens with the same thing, I think, with anti-Semitism. It's the worst thing you can call a German, probably, because it's so it has been taught since probably school and high school and reinforced through all the education that that's the worst thing that you can be. So the fear of being called anti-Semitic may be so big that you are willing to change your statement that you only applaud the Israeli person.
But it's anti-Semitic also. It's a fetishization, actually. It's anti-Semitic to also just clap for just the Israeli, actually. And it's also anti-Semitic that, like, Jewish voices for peace in this country, or like a lot of artists, there's a really good Instagram account called Archive of Silence, which shows not only the Palestinian artists and writers who have been silenced, but the Jewish and Israeli artists and writers who, because of their views, have been silenced in this country. That's also anti-Semitic because they're not the right type of Jew, basically.
But it like completely, this kind of loops back to what we were saying at the beginning about the like sexual assault thing. It was like anti-Semitism is a problem. And that's what we should be talking about, not whether or not Claudia Roth clapped for the Israeli or the Palestinian person. It's like we're having the wrong conversation. So like, I think that was just like a really flimsy PR attempt to like control the narrative because she knew she was going to get shit for it. And so they were like, how can we spin this?
So if you look at Oyun, for example, which is this culturalist institution we have in Berlin, they try to organize an event with Jewish Voices for Peace about the situation in Gaza, obviously with a pro-Gaza stance. And then a person from the AFD made a complaint about the event to shut it down. And a lot of events that are organized by Jewish people are shut down by people who are very right-wing. So they're using, like you were saying, people who use feminism as a weapon I think anti-Semitism is being used as a weapon by the right so that they can then peddle an anti-Islam narrative too. Because then they're saying, oh, all the anti-Semitism is being imported by all the people from the Arab world, which is absolutely untrue anyway. I mean, we have such a big AFD, how many percent are we at now? 30% or something ridiculous?
There was an article that said that if they were do election today, they will win at least a second place.
Yeah, right. So mostly anti-Semitism falls into racism, falls into the AFD territory, and mostly that's white German people. And that's the problem. But they don't want to look at that, so they also don't want to look at their own people and their own thing, and then they put it onto, the poor Syrians who have just come with nothing. I don't think that's that's the way it's being weaponized also against refugees, and what this country is doing also with the refugee situation is terrible.
We also have this idea in Germany, right, of like Aufarbeitung. We dealt with our past. It's over with. So this anti-Semitism, well, that can't come from us. We dealt with it. It's over with, We denazified, which, like, spoiler alert, Germany did not. They just kind of put it under the carpet and said, yeah, we got rid of all that. We got rid of all that. Don't look too closely. And so now, well, where is this coming from? Well, it must have been imported. Yeah. And it's also like Germany has this very simplistic view, I think, the general idea of like, what the region there looks like, because they think, they're all Muslims. You see this a lot in the conversation, in the narrative. The words Arab and Muslim are used interchangeable when that's not correct. Like, there's just as many Christians living in Palestine. There's also Jewish Palestinians who are affected by this situation. So we're really having such a black and white discussion about it, and we really all need to educate ourselves.